What is the funniest thing you've ever seen? The lady in front of me did a yard sale while waiting in line for the ski lift. For those of you who don't know, a yard sale in skiing is when you wipe out and lose all of your gear in the process. This lady was in front of me talking to her friend one moment and the next she had exploded with gloves, poles, helmet, goggles, and skis going all different directions. Somehow it looked like her coat was trying to escape as well. I've never seen anything so unexpected, violent, and harmless at the same time. I had to get out of line until I caught my breath from laughing. Nothing caused it. She did not get touched by anything. She just went down hard completely out of the blue. This kid was bugging my friend, so she lunged at him like she was going to attack him. He turned to run and ran face first into a pole. She started laughing and turned to run away because the teachers were headed our way and ran face first into another pole. Both ended up in the nurse's office with matching bloody noses, and I laughed so hard I had an asthma attack. We were bringing lunch to the teachers at school and my daughter announced that we made a special soup for Mr. S because he's a virgin. Mr. S is a vegan. I was lucky enough to watch Kung Pao enter the fist at the perfect age of 12 at a sleepover. Watching it back now as an adult and it's just insanely stupid, but for 3 12-year-old boys it was the most hilarious thing I'd ever seen. Never laughed harder. I was desperate for cash in my late teens, so I took a 12-hour shift in a banana packing factory. I ended up working on a conveyor belt, picking the good nanas, throwing away the bad ones. You get the gist. About halfway through the most soul-sucking, monotonous working day of my life, I witnessed a man carrying a box of bananas slipping on an escaped banana on the floor, throwing the whole box of lovely yellow fruit into the air and crashing epically into a 6-foot stack of banana boxes. Naturally, I buckled like a broken stool, rolling around the factory floor pissing my sides. When I managed to compose myself, I realized that no one else had laughed, nor even so much as looked up from the hypnotic conveyor belt. I decided factories weren't for me and went back to the books. In grade 8 gym class, a kid clotheslined himself with a volleyball net. He ran face first into it and his legs went flying out from underneath him. It was like a cartoon. At work in the lab one day, a senior coworker is up on a ladder and tries to pull a 60-pound power supply unit that cost $70,000 out of the rack we were repairing. Thing falls 7 feet, annihilates a table and another 35K worth of equipment and slams on the floor. Coworker looks down from his perch and says, "Cha-cha real smooth," and goes back to work. I lost it. I work for a multi-billion-dollar defense company that had about 50 replacements in the back room. No big deal, but his absolute do not give a response nailed me. A guy was sprinting down the hall in college, obviously in a hurry. Well, there was a floor mat right before the stairs at the end of the hall. The mat slipped as soon as he ran on it, so he lost his balance, but because he has momentum he kept on running up the stairs, trying to catch himself. Somehow he recovered and just ran out of the building. I could not handle it. That Russian road rage video where a guy was screaming at a van, then the people in the van dressing as cartoon characters went to beat him. Once, during college, a group of us saw 2 blind people walk into each other, and one bounced off and landed in a trash can. Obviously, this was a shock to both, and the trash can blind person shouted, "What are you blind?" which was met with a very apologetic, "Yes, I will never laugh that hard again." Hell, I'm laughing at it again now just typing this. One of the funniest, not the funniest, but certainly top 10, circa 2004-2005, principal of our middle school became fed up with the circle game kids were playing, game where you make a circle with your fingers and hold it below your waist, so if you convince someone to look at it you get punched. Principal holds up his fingers in the exact position as the circle game and yells at the entire cafeteria, "Ya see this? This is not okay." Random student, Mr. Redacted. "Does this mean you're going to punch all of us?" Room goes silent. A few years ago, my entire extended family went to spread my grandmother's ashes at the beach, and when we waded in about knee-deep, My brother threw the ashes into the air instead of tipping them into the water. He got smacked with a face full of grandma, started crying, and then had to dive into a wave fully clothed to get her off of him. He was 30 years old. It must have been 10 seconds in total, but I, a grown woman, peed myself laughing, and it a fantastic send-off for her. This drunk dude at a bar was telling a group of us that there was a guy sitting in a chair outside staring him down. Our friend had poor eyesight, and it didn't help that he was piss drunk, but he was absolutely convinced that the guy outside wanted to fight him. We looked outside onto the patio area, and sure enough, there was a guy in a chair with an evil look on his face, facing the window to the bar. I should also add that this was close to Halloween, and the guy sitting in the chair was a stuffed scarecrow with a pumpkin for a head, with a mean face drawn on it. We almost let our friend loose on the thing, but it was hilarious watching him rant how he's going to kill the guy, and to watch his back because the scarecrow probably had friends with him. My best friend used to fight in karate tournaments and was actually pretty good. One time there was no one in his age belt class to fight, so he was invited to fight in an exhibition fight with another kid who didn't have anyone to fight. Well, they were wearing headgear so you couldn't really make out their facial features very well, so my friend didn't realize that he was fighting against a kid with Down syndrome. He beat the ever-loving shit out of this poor kid. The whole time people were telling him to take it easy and giving him dirty looks and shit, and he just kept on obliviously beating that kid's ass. To this day he's still known as the guy who relentlessly beat up a disabled kid. He will never live it down as long as I'm alive. It was because of me actually. 7 years ago I was at a friend's apartment for a Bible study group. At one point a guy was praying over a girl. Everyone was completely silent while they were praying. Then out of nowhere, I farted loudly. I tried my hardest to hold it in, but I just couldn't. All eyes immediately were on me. Nobody in that apartment could stop laughing for about 20 minutes. There's a brewery in my neighborhood. It's one of those cool places where people bring their dogs and their kids. Funniest shit I've ever seen was a 7 or 8-year-old girl playing Battleship against the bartender, but with no ships down. B3. Miss. Damn it. Again. I can never find it, but there's a green text about this redneck who scared off a bunch of teenagers while naked and screaming "F me." Is this what you're looking for? I was at a Black Bear diner with my husband and our other friend. We were all a little high. The Black Bear mascot comes out of the kitchen and towards our row of seats. Across the aisle from us was a mom with 2 little boys, maybe 3 to 6 years old. One of the little boys had his back towards the kitchen and didn't see the mascot coming out, and he turned around right as the bear got to his table and just lost his shit, screaming bloody murder and crying. The mascot then turns to our table and shrugs. Obviously we couldn't see her face, but you could tell they were mortified. They then backed away slowly back into the kitchen. I still think about the way the mascot looked at us and crack up. I was walking through downtown when there was a Segway tour going on across the street. One of the people in the Segway tour lost control and slammed into a pole. I still laugh uncontrollably when I think about it. When I was in college I saw a monkey langur dangling its tail down a bolster and a dog trying to bite it, but whenever the dog came close to bite it, the monkey lifted its tail in air, leaving the dog baffled and angry. It went on for several minutes. It was hilarious. There was a shop in London which sold the cloud ice creams with the circle of candy floss around the cone. It was real Instagram bait when it first opened. Think it might be closed now. I wanted to walk my boyfriend past it, to show him the cues and what the ice creams looked like. As soon as we turned the corner, we saw a girl coming out ice cream in hand with her phone in position to get the perfect IG shot. As soon as she stepped over the doorway, the ball of ice cream fell on the floor and she was left with just the cone and candy floss. The sound it made was such a cartoon splat. Neither of us could believe it. It was just perfect timing with the perfect sound effect. Sounds a bit mean-spirited, but I can still hear the sound so clearly in my head and it makes me laugh every time. In high school, one of my friends lived on a cul-de-sac near our school, so this became the nexus of a bunch of gatherings. Our senior year, a bunch of us are over there and, being bored high schoolers without much money, came up with a really dumb way to entertain ourselves. In our infinite wisdom we decide that one person is going to climb into the bed of a pickup truck and hold the handle of a little red wagon, which will be on the ground behind the truck. People will ride in the wagon and hold on for their dear lives while the truck goes up and down the deserted street. Surprisingly, this does not end in immediate catastrophe. For the most part people just sit in the wagon and are pulled gently along, or crouched so they could bail quickly when things went inevitably awry. That is, until the foreign exchange student decides he's going to take a turn. He wants to do something more impressive, so he lies on his stomach on top of the wagon, taking a Superman pose. The guy in the truck bed obviously thinks it's a bad idea, but he shrugs his shoulders and tells the driver to hit it. The driver accelerates and the wagon immediately slides out from under our poor foreign friend. For a split second it seems gravity itself is shocked at our stunning stupidity and he hangs in the air, one arm still magnificently outstretched, his other hand on his hip. Then the forces of nature recover their senses and the guy falls flat on the ground. Fortunately he was left with nothing more serious than a few scrapes for his trouble, and we stopped doing this stupid stunt before a funny story became a hospital trip. I was a Walgreens cashier in an extremely religious neighborhood full of rich old Baptists. One day a woman comes in to buy cigarettes and is something like $3 short. She starts digging around in her giant Mary Poppins bag, holding up the line, wastes a good 5 minutes on it before she dumps the entire thing out on my counter. There, in the detritus of a middle-aged housewife's bag, was a crumpled up $10 bill. She yells hallelujah, the Lord is looking out for me, and hands me the folded up bill. I unfold it, and it's one of those fake tens people give waiters as tips, the ones with the Bible quotes on the inside. Me, God wants you to quit smoking. Posting for my mom. Unfortunately I didn't exist yet when this happened, so my aunt mom's sister is an incredibly awful person. She has a voice like Ricky's mom in Better Off Dead, was horribly spoiled by her grandparents' first girl born in 4 generations, and just vindictively mean. She's the kind of person who goes well out of her way to demean people and convince people everyone hates you. She's also 5'2" and over 300 pounds. One day at a family gathering, she goes to sit on a wicker chair. The chair disintegrates under her. She then, while still on the floor, angrily looks at her mother, owner of the once chair, and yells, "What the hell is wrong with your chair?" My mom had to run out of the room. She was laughing, crying so hard.